When Harold Bennett returned to Maplewood Lane after 12 long years, the taxi driver offered to help with his bags, but Harold waved him off with a polite smile. He wanted to walk alone, just one more time, down that old stone path that once echoed with laughter, the scent of fresh roses, and the soft hum of his wife's favorite tune. The White House stood quietly at the end of the lane, aged, familiar, yet a little sad. Paint had peeled off the shutters, and the porch swing hung motionless, one chain rusted through. Harold gripped his cane and looked around. Everything seemed smaller now. Maybe time did that, made places shrink when the people inside them were gone. He unlocked the door, and the faint smell of lavender met him. Margaret loved lavender. She used to sprinkle it in every corner so the house would smell like kindness, she'd say. Harold chuckled softly at the memory, then sighed. "You'd laugh at me now, Maggie. I've gotten old without you." Inside, the house felt like a memory frozen in time. Her knitting basket still sat near the fireplace, a half-finished scarf peeking out. Her favorite book, Pride and Prejudice, lay open on the armchair, as if she'd just stepped away for tea. Harold's eyes burned. He brushed off the dust, whispering, "You really did leave your heart in every corner, didn't you?" And then his gaze shifted through the back window to the garden. Once, that garden was Margaret's pride. Every morning she'd wake up early, put on her straw hat, and hum softly while tending to her roses and tulips. Neighbors used to stop by just to admire it. But now, it was a tangled wilderness. Vines crept over the fences, wild grass swallowed the flower beds, and even the once bright birdbath had cracked in half. It felt wrong, as though the world had forgotten something sacred. That night, Harold sat in the kitchen with a cup of tea. The wind outside whispered against the windows, and in that silence, he made a promise to bring the garden back to life. Not because he believed it would bring Margaret back, but because it would bring her memory back to bloom. The next morning, the sun peeked over the horizon as Harold stepped outside with his old gardening gloves. His knees creaked and his hands trembled slightly, but the earth still felt familiar. He knelt beside the overgrown patch where Margaret's roses once stood. "This was your favorite corner, Maggie," he murmured. "Let's see if we can wake it up again." He worked slowly, pulling weeds, trimming dead branches, and digging through hard, stubborn soil. The first few hours left him breathless, but it felt good, a kind of good that went deeper than his body's pain. It was as if, with every route he pulled, he was untangling a knot inside his heart. By afternoon, sweat rolled down his wrinkled forehead. He sat under the old oak tree to rest, and that's when he noticed it. A small piece of paper tucked between the stones of the garden path. He picked it up carefully. The edges were yellowed, the ink slightly faded, but he recognized it instantly. Margaret's handwriting. It read, "If you ever return to this garden, promise me you'll plant hope before flowers." Harold's breath caught. He remembered those words. She'd said them years ago, when she was sick, but still smiling. He had brushed it off back then, not understanding what she meant. But now, it felt like a message, not from beyond, but from the past. A seed of her heart left behind for him to find. He smiled faintly. "You always knew I'd come back here, didn't you?" He folded the note gently and placed it in his pocket. Days turned into weeks. Every morning, Harold woke up early and worked on the garden. The neighbors, curious about the old man's sudden return, often peeked from across the fence. Some offered help, but Harold politely refused. This was something he had to do alone. As the days passed, the garden began to change. New life pushed through old soil. Roses returned to color, daisies stood tall, and the scent of lilies drifted through the air again. For the first time in years, the house felt alive. And with each step of progress, Harold kept finding more of Margaret's old notes, tucked away inside flower pots, between gardening books, even in the pocket of her old apron hanging by the shed. Each one carried a memory. "You said I loved flowers more than you, but you were wrong. You just didn't realize you were one of them. If grief ever visits, let it sit in the garden. It won't stay long among blooms. When you see a butterfly, Know that I once watched it too." Harold began reading them aloud each evening, his voice soft and trembling as though she were listening. The garden became his conversation with her. The day of the letter. One morning, while digging near the rosebush, his spade hit something solid. He brushed away the dirt and found a small tin box. Inside lay a sealed envelope addressed to him. His hands shook as he opened it. The letter inside was written in Margaret's elegant hand. "My dear Harold, if you are reading this, it means life has brought you back home. I always knew it would. I hope the garden greeted you kindly, even in its wildness. You see, I didn't want you to think of this place as an end. I wanted you to think of it as a promise. You were always the quiet one, the one who fixed things but forgot to mend yourself. I hope, as you restore this garden, you also learn to forgive yourself for all the things you think you failed to do. You never failed me, Harold. You gave me more love than I could ever repay. When you see the roses bloom again, know that my love still lives somewhere among them, not as a ghost, but as a memory that refuses to fade. Yours forever, Margaret." Tears rolled down his face. He pressed the letter to his heart and whispered, "I missed you every day, Maggie." That night, he didn't feel lonely for the first time in years. He felt full, like the garden was holding him the same way she used to. Just a gentle reminder, if this story touched your heart and gave you peace tonight, dear listener, you can support us through PayPal. The link is in the description. Your kindness helps us keep creating more stories filled with love, healing, and hope for beautiful souls like you. Spring returns. Months passed, and spring painted the world in soft colors. The garden had completely transformed. The roses were in full bloom, birds built nests in the oak tree, and sunlight danced over the petals. People from the neighborhood started visiting again. They'd bring their grandchildren, walk through the path, and tell Harold how beautiful it looked. He'd smile and say, "It's not mine, it belongs to my wife. I'm just keeping it alive for her." One afternoon, a young woman from next door, named Clara, brought over a pot of tea. "Mr. Bennet," she said softly, "I've lived here for 5 years, and I never saw this garden alive like this. You've brought it back. It's beautiful." Harold smiled gently. Love tends to do that. It may rest for a while, but it never dies. She noticed a small wooden board near the rosebush. It read, "The Bennet Garden, a place for remembering love." Clara touched his arm. "It feels peaceful here." Harold nodded. "It should. It's made of peace." The final note. One morning, while trimming the last of the bushes, Harold spotted a final folded piece of paper under a stone near the birdbath. It read, "When you finish the garden, rest here a while. Don't rush away. Sit among the flowers and listen. They'll tell you how proud I am of you." He smiled, eyes glistening. He pulled out his old chair, sat in the shade, and watched the sunlight filter through the branches. The garden was alive, truly alive. Bees buzzed, wind chimes sang, and somewhere, deep inside him, peace bloomed quietly. He whispered, "I kept my promise, Maggie." For hours, he sat there, lost in thought. When evening came, he lit a small lantern by the path, the same kind Margaret once used during her evening rounds. Its warm light flickered softly across the flowers, making them look like they were glowing from within. That night, he felt tired, not from age, but from contentment. He went to bed early, the window open so the smell of the garden could drift inside. The next morning, a neighbor came to visit and found Harold sitting peacefully in his chair by the garden, eyes closed, a faint smile on his face. In his hand was Margaret's last letter. He had passed away quietly, surrounded by her flowers, by her words, by the love he never stopped nurturing. The neighbors buried him under the old oak tree beside his wife. On his tombstone, Clara carved his favorite line from her letters. "When you see the roses bloom again, know that my love still lives somewhere among them." Years later, children would run through the garden, and older couples would sit quietly on the bench, holding hands. The story of Harold and Margaret Bennet became part of Maplewood Lane, a tale of love that didn't end with goodbye, but continued through roots, petals, and memories. Sometimes, visitors would say the garden had a special calm to it, a kind of peace that couldn't be explained. Perhaps it wasn't something to explain, but to feel. And as long as someone stopped to breathe in the scent of those roses, Harold and Margaret's love would never fade. If this story touched your heart and gave you peace tonight, dear listener, you can support us through PayPal. The link is in the description. Your kindness helps us keep creating more stories filled with love, healing, and hope for beautiful souls like you. And if you believe that love never truly ends, share this story with someone who might need that reminder tonight. Because sometimes, all we need is a little bloom of memory to feel alive again.